Welcome to the quiet little corner of YouTube called Brother Owl's Garden. I'm Brian and I honor your presence here today. And let me tell you what an honor it is to have the presence of our special guest today, Kiara Windrider. He's coming all the way from India. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have you as a friend and a guest today, Kiara. And would you let our precious audience know just a little bit about who you are in case somebody isn't familiar? I only discovered you recently myself, so tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Brian. This feels very, you know, serendipitous to have this connection and uh, this conversation. So, just a little bit about myself. I've been traveling most of my life, inwardly as well as outwardly.
Right.
Um, I'm a psychotherapist by profession. I've been exploring many, many different spiritual, shamanic traditions. I'm also an avid science explorer,
Mm.
and my passion has been to bring all these together, physics and metaphysics and geology and astrophysics, along with various metaphysical um, traditions, and also listening directly to what spirit wants to say. So, more and more, I feel like there's so much information out there, but to actually feel into that, see what's real for us today and what wants to emerge. I feel like we're in the transition from one age to another, and we're called here to make a difference in this world, and for the world, for humanity, for all species to step into a new earth vibration. So that's been my goal and my interest ever since I remember, ever since I was 8 years old. I remember writing a poem. I don't remember the entire poem, but the first few lines, where God and nature and mankind meet. There I journey with tired feet to create a world as best I can, where man lives with nature and God lives with man.
Mm.
And that's been kind of the foundational, principle of my life. And I feel like, yeah, what else are we here for? What else is it worth being here for? We're here to create a new earth. We're here to create new ways of being, which honors the fullness of who we are as divine beings, which honors the fullness of creation, which honors this phase that we're going through, where there's a massive global awakening, where God lives with man, where man lives with nature, where man discovers its own nature reflected in the world around us and in the God within us. So that's been my journey, and I've traveled, I've lived in many places, um, east and west. Although Thailand is one place I haven't been to, and I'd love to come visit you there sometime.
Oh, Mikasa es Sukasa, come now. It would be an absolute,
Hmm.
it would be the most auspicious thrill I could think of. And it would be magical. The place where
Hmm.
I live has little tidbits and nuggets of magic strewn about it for those that seek even a little. And I've lived here for nearly 6 years. I do feel that my time here is coming to completion, but I don't claim to know what's next, and so I remain here for the moment. But I've also done an awful lot of traveling. I've lived in technically 4 countries, and I my impression of what you've shared about you is that, not to sound too flowery, but you are a living poem. Everything that you just said was poetically beautiful and far-reaching and enriching and opulent with spiritual resonance, which is, that's my vibe. That's what I love. I'm the kind of man who I not only don't do small talk with people, chit chat. I can't. I can't be bothered. But when I meet someone like you, and in fairness, I'm only just meeting Kiara. We don't have a history. Our history is beginning right here, right now, today, live and unscripted. um, when I meet someone like you, again, the word resonance, there's just this recognition of vibration. And, we do meet people where they are vibrating now, and also from where we are vibrating right now. We meet people at their current resonance. And when I meet someone like you, I already knew, oh, this is a luminous soul that I am going to be very, very blessed to get to know. And so, again, it's a great honor to have you here on this humble little platform. And thank you for gracing it with your presence and your gifts.
Well, your words touch me. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, as I said before, you kind of embody this sacred poetry. Speaking of embodying, let's talk a little bit about fully embodying our divinity, or embodying our full divinity, however, which way you want to think of it. In today's world, although there is definitely a global mass awakening happening, would you agree, Kiara, that it's fair to say that there's also quite a pull in the other direction at the same time? Which,
Huge polarization.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't say, I can't look at it and say, oh, it's all this. No, I don't see that.
Mm.
What's your take on that part?
Well, the way I see it, divinity is embodied in everything, everything, no matter how contradictory it seems. It's just that we're not aware of the divinity,
Right.
and we're not allowing ourselves to resonate and become a reflection of that because of our own inner contradictions. And so we close ourselves off. We basically enter into this black hole, and it's our own creation through which light cannot shine. And the moment we decide, okay, it's time to step into the light, it's not even about doing anything, it's undoing that
Absolutely.
veiling.
Yeah.
It's allowing ourselves to be who we are, to become what we already have been. And I think this is the message, just the essence of every spiritual tradition. Whether it's Buddhism, which I see the Buddhas behind you, whether it's Hinduism,
There's a
Islam,
lot behind me.
Christianity. Oh, there you are. Okay.
There is a
Yeah,
lot.
that's Isa and Mariam.
Yeah.
Yes.
I come from a Roman Catholic background, but I am certainly not what a Roman Catholic would define as traditional, or, in the box. I don't fit into any box, and I
Right.
don't I don't self-identify with any ism. I
Mhm.
don't fit neatly into anything, and I don't define myself by any of it. What I do
Exactly.
is I'm just open to what resonates as divine, true, sacred, holy, good, and pure. And I definitely do cherry pick, as you will, from whether it's Sufism, Taoism, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, wherever I find uh, a nugget of the divine, I rejoice and welcome it. And I don't believe that any tradition or ideology um, has got it all by any means.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think that maybe it's scattered throughout all of them. And I will also say that I don't think that it's necessary to find those things within them per se, even if they do contain some of them.
Well, I'm thinking of John Lennon in his beautiful song, Imagine. And one of the lines is no religions too.
Yeah.
And I was puzzled about that to begin with.
But
What do you
about
mean?
religion, Kiara, I think that people need it. And I think people create it as part of being human. And let's be careful what I mean by religion. A personal means of understanding and interacting with what we call the divine or the supernatural or the spiritual. It doesn't have to be an institutionalized ideology per se, but I think that even the atheist, that's their religion. The
Mhm.
atheism view of that is their religion.
So
ironically.
worldview might be a better phrase. So this is a worldview, and then we build on that. So
Yeah,
we build step after step after step, leading us to where we choose to go.
yeah,
And at the first step for many people might be an organized religion, maybe a
right,
dogmatic
right,
um, worldview. And then as we evolve, it grows less dogmatic, more inclusive, and more experiential.
right.
So it's not a teaching outside of us, it's about the recognition of who we are. And God is reflected in everything, which
Yeah,
is who we are.
right. And that makes me think of Jalaluddin Rumi's quote, about there are many lamps, but only one
Mhm.
flame. So
Yes,
I may not have
yes.
said that perfectly, but that's the point. Oh, I wanted to ask you a question, Kiara. Kiara Windrider, are you by any chance familiar with the Taoist sage Liezi? He's considered the third in the trilogy
Hmm.
of great Taoist sages. Liezi, he rides the wind. Are you familiar with him?
No, you're not speaking of Lao Tzu.
No, no,
This is
Lao
someone
Tzu,
else.
Lao Tzu, if you think of it as a triangle,
Yeah.
Lao Tzu is
Mm,
definitely the top first, the
mm,
ancient one, Lao Tzu. And then you
right.
have Zhuangzi, who was the next successor of the understanding of the Taoist mysticism. And then on the other corner, the third one, you have
Mm,
Liezi. And Liezi is known as the one who rode the wind. Now, what that means, it's kind of a poetic, metaphorical way of saying that he was so disinterested and disconnected from all the entanglements of the ego intellect and the I want this, I need this. If I get this, I'll be happy. I just need this house and that new car, and I need this new wardrobe. He was so genuinely disinterested and therefore disconnected from all of it that he was considered light as air and he could just flow.
mm,
He was in continuous flow state, as we would say today. But I absolutely love mystical Taoism. I'm actually averse to folk Taoism on the superficial level. I dislike it.
yeah,
Doesn't appeal to me at
yeah.
all. But inside that kernel of esoteric, almost inexplicable, mystic Tao, that's what I love. And the reason why I thought, oh, Kiara Windrider, I wonder if he has any affiliation with that notion, such as Liezi.
Mm,
And the funny thing, to conclude this point, is that I had not heard of Liezi until
mm,
some number of years ago. And the funny thing is what I call a soul dream. It was not a dream that I was watching as an observer, lucid dreaming, or observing a movie in my memory. It was a soul dream. I suddenly peeled back the veil and I'm in spirit. And I've had just a few of them in my whole life. And suddenly it was as if there was some kind of a flow current. It was invisible, but there along the surface of the ground, maybe 3 feet above, was sort of I can't say that it was wind. I can't say that it was air. I can't say that it was energy. I can't say that it was electromagnetism. I'm not sure, but there was this stream and it was always going anyway. And I went and sat in it like in a roller coaster car, how you would do. And
mm,
I didn't think, which is probably why I was able to do it. I didn't think. I recognized that there was this flow stream. Maybe that's flow state. And I went and I didn't surf it or prone. I sat in it like there was a chair. Of course, there was no chair, but I just
yeah,
decided to sit and I rode it out
yeah,
effortlessly.
yeah.
And I can't say that I was flying. I was being carried and flown by this force, this moving stream.
Mm. That's the
And
Tao.
it
Yeah.
and it was either the next day or maybe one day after that, not more, that I discovered Liezi. And I
Mm,
said, how did I ever not know about
mm,
this sage with how much how endearing the mystical Tao is to me. But I just wondered if you had any connection, and there not being any, I'm very glad to be the one to let you know about Lietz.
Yeah, I have to check him out. I will. Yes, yes. No, for me it was well, actually the name Windrider, it came in a shamanic experience. And this was 1999. I'd just come back from Hawaii, where I'd had an encounter with a mother and baby whale, a humpback, and it was so life-changing. And it just opened up some doorways. And so I was doing this shamanic vision quest in the mountains. I was living in a place called Mount Shasta in Northern California, which is a very sacred mountain for Native people. And so I went off into the mountains. I was doing a vision quest. And over the days, I was experiencing a deep presence, entering, merging, communicating. And I'd gone in with a particular question, because this was a time that there was an astrological conjunction. I think it was Uranus, Neptune, or maybe Uranus and Pluto, but it was very intense. And it was also Y2K. It was also the dawn of a new century. What's coming up for humanity? What can we expect? Are we going to make it through? And so that was my question going in. And so what this presence was communicating were different streams of possibility for the future. And so there was one stream which was very destructive, which could have destroyed everything. And then this presence reported that we have passed that particular timeline. It's no longer valid because we have chosen collectively to go beyond. We don't need that in order to grow. The earth does not need that in order to evolve. We don't need to extinguish ourselves in order to create a new resurrected timeline. The second timeline had to do with a transition that would be chaotic and difficult, but there'd be this enormous splitting, which we're experiencing now. Your first question about
I was going to say that sounds like now.
Yeah, that sounds, it's exactly what's going on.
Confusion, not knowing what to believe at all, not knowing what to do next, sort of being suspended in this state of perpetual anticipation of what's going to happen next. What are they going to do next? That kind of thing. Unless you can unplug from it, but it's hypnotic until you unplug from it. It's hypnotizing, and it can
it's
take
very much
months.
It's the matrix. So it's here we are trying to unplug from the matrix, but not even recognizing for many of us that it is a matrix. That is an artificial construction, that we are programmed collectively to think and feel and fear and believe in ways that we've been taught to, which are not real. It's not who we are. Humans are a magnificent species. We have enormous potential, but we've programmed ourselves into this tiny little Pandora's box of, discordant possibilities.
To be honest with you, it's pathetic. It's not necessary, though, thankfully, but it's kind of pathetic. But only after you suddenly snap out of it, even temporarily, can you realize, oh my gosh, the folly of this. What am I allowing into my being? What am I consuming? They say you are what you eat. Let me rephrase that. You are what you let in. You are what you ingest. It's not just food. It's media, it's messaging, it's programming, it's social media poison. It's all kinds of there's a war for your consciousness for sure going on. And at this point, I don't know how anybody could still be not even beginning to awaken, but I don't know. Depends on where everybody is.
I think waking up can mean different things for different people.
True. Yeah. And I guess we're all on our own timeline, our own pace.
I think for some people, they do need to experience a total annihilation of the sense of self. everything that gives them sense of purpose, meaning, life, livelihood, security, before they're willing to release the personal self and enter into freedom.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And
And
in
who knows?
fairness, I can look back at, I'm not making any, please don't misunderstand. I can look back very recently in my past and say, how the heck was I thinking and responding and being that way for so long? And not to say that whatever process I've gone through of gradual awakening and returning, it is valuable, and I'm very glad about it. But I also am very equally humbled when I turn ahead and say, and yet so much, yet so much. But you said earlier, I don't know if we had pressed record yet or not, but you said it's a matter of letting go, releasing. I think you said that in the very beginning of our conversation here. I think it was recorded. And I just got a big grin because, Kiara, so much has that been affirmed and reaffirmed and restated to me personally in the recent past, where it's almost like the divine light just saying, my child, stop striving, stop struggling, stop exerting and toiling and grinding away and yearning. That's all the wrong direction of energy. It's a matter of letting go of, letting be, assenting, flowing with, allowing. There's definitely a place for the sacred masculine aspect of energy and spirit, but when it comes to ascension and awakening and evolution, I would have to say it totally leans to the feminine aspect, which is all of this releasing and allowing, flowing with,
And
rather
that's the
than
third
grabbing at.
timeline. Exactly. So the third timeline is surrendering, releasing, letting go of the personal self. It's not that we are not important. We're supremely important, but not in the way we've imagined. We tend to think that I am the one who's going to make something happen. I'm the one who's going to accomplish something, the new earth, new paradigms, new possibilities, new transitions. No, all we can do is let go, release our conceptions of how things are. And then what happens is that's a much greater power than we can imagine. Back again to the stream. It's like this huge waterfall comes rushing through. Nothing can stop it. And it carries with it everything that we can put in the way to prevent this divine outcome. And I think we're right at that cusp now. So what this vision was about, when I was talking about the story, this vision quest, and these three timelines, these three possibilities, we are entering into this timeline now. We are entering into this new wave of light. And this wave is there. It's descending. It's here. It's already around us. It's within us. It's all around. But if we step out of the way of this light can take over. And it has its own intelligence. It has its own purpose. It has its own direction. And if we choose to become vehicles for this, there's no telling how far we can go or how far evolution can happen. A new wave of evolution, perhaps in a way that the world has not seen yet. So when I talk about divinity embodied, that's it. It's like the separation between human and divine, spirit and body vanishes.
Well, I was about to ask you, Kiara, would you say that this light, this energy that is resonating all around us and within us and for us, I was going to say, would you say that it is divine, and would you say that it is divinity?
Absolutely. In fact, I don't even like the term divine anymore.
Why is that?
because then it supposes that there's something less than divine, or there's something outside of divine. And how can
Like
that be?
supernatural and natural and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, language, and I will be the first to say, particularly English, which
Yeah.
is a fantastic language for categorizing and doing business, but it's not good for navigating your way through spiritual topics. It's not good.
Yeah.
But for lack of better words, and words are always less. That, like the Zen proverb teaches, as soon as you describe something, you have moved one step away from it.
Mhm.
You're already backed away from it when you describe, so words are already a step away.
Right. Well,
But
the Tao Te Ching begins with that which can be spoken is not the Tao.
yep, yep. And yet they're speaking about the Tao that can't be spoken. So we need in this context of 3D human incarnate, whatever, I don't know. I think we used to have in our original creation, which I believe we were probably light bodies or something close to that. I believe that it was probably through telepathy that we communicated, and then for some reason, the fall of man, or we devolved or moved away, separated, disconnected, whatever is the right. I think and then language comes, and somebody said to me once, I never forgot it. Energy does not lie. Language was created for deception. Now, I don't know if language was created to deceive, but deception is almost all contained within language. So,
And that's not the way it was meant to be.
yeah,
Like in Kashmir Shaivism, there's this whole concept of it's a doctrine of vibration,
yep.
and it
Frequency
reflects
resonance.
different levels of vibration having to do with different realms of creation. And so we're talking about will, or Ichha Shakti, which can be expressed and manifested into form through the word. I mean, the Greek word is the same, logos. In the beginning was the word.
Right.
But it's not a spoken word. It's a vibrational essence. It's a vibrational wave that just moves through time and space to create realities. And we shape those realities based on our own inner divinity. And it's the recognition that there is a mechanism within creation that supports this. So it's not just haphazard and random. It's not like, okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen when I make this intention. No, it's more like that intention and the manifestation are one and the same. And that happens through the word, which is a response to will. So it's will on that divine,
Yeah.
well, I won't
Yeah.
even say divine, the transcendental level, which then steps into form and creates through physical reality.
And that reminds me, Kiara, of the Sufis. When they describe, God creating, be, and it is.
Yeah.
Even just that word, be, and it is.
Right. Exactly.
Now, as far as embodying our full divinity goes, what I've observed, Kiara, and this is sort of I haven't worked this one out for myself yet. This one is still gestating and marinating in my own little realm. In so many of my videos, I will close by reminding everyone that you are the divinity from which you have arisen. And that is something that has come to me as I have been shown this. Now, again, I may not have the perfect words, but those are the most perfect I could present it with so far. And, okay, we are the divinity from which we have arisen. We are the beam of the sun. We are that. That is our nature, essence, and image, and how we function. how it is our essence. However, I have a little bit of a conflict, and I wonder what you think about this. Yes, we are that, but we're not being that. And there's my conflict. You are that, but you're not being that. I am that, but I'm not being that. And that's a source of contention and in less awakened moments, struggle. But what would you offer to that, Kiara? We are the divinity from which we've arisen. But look around, we're not being that.
We're not choosing to be that. It's a choice.
Yeah, more specific.
And it's a programmed choice, in the sense that it's not really, I mean, when we say it's a choice, when we talk about free will, there's this whole argument, free will versus predestination. It only makes, well, it's only an argument if we think that we have free will. We don't. We have programmed will. It's, most of the decisions we make in our lives are programmed. They're programmed by the past. They're programmed by culture, society, conditioning. They're programmed by church, religion, socialization. So how many decisions do we truly make based on free will? So if we are truly reflecting divinity, divinity is freedom, absolute freedom of choice, absolute freedom of expression. So if you're expressing divinity, it means being free to choose. And we're not free to choose. We basically live out our conditioning. We say what people want us to say. We believe what people want us to believe. We accomplish what we are told to accomplish. We fit into these little tiny boxes, and they get so, tinier and tinier, smaller and smaller, until they choke us to death.
Yeah.
And it takes away our freedom. It takes away our ability to explore truth.
You remind me of the quote by Shams Tabrizi, who I adore. I can only paraphrase it, but he said, if you want to stay on good terms with everyone, you have to become a hypocrite. If you want to be cool with everybody, you've got to be a two-face.
Yeah.
And I'm just nope, don't care. Who I'm not cool with. Can't be that. But
well, a lot of people, Rumi is known around the world, as this great mystic and poet and philosopher and teacher. Nobody remembers Shams. Very few people remember Shams.
Incorrect. I do, and I adore him, and I credit him for being the agent that triggered and awakened Rumi, because if not for Shams, no Rumi.
He was a fire. Yeah. He was a fire that woke him up.
I love you for saying this. I literally built a stone pyramid shrine to honor him here in Thailand. When you come, I will take you there. Because to me, Shams is the man. Shams is the one who came and found Rumi studying so scholarly with his pile of books and his silken outfit, and quite smug with himself, perhaps. He knew all the surahs and verses and everything. And Shams had been wandering all the way from Iran, wandering all the way to Konya in Turkey, where he was led by spirit, you could say. He finds Rumi there, scholarly, meticulously learning all the surahs, and he says, "Oh, what do you got there? What are you doing? What are you doing there?" And Rumi looks up at him. Of course, I'm getting this from the 40 Rules of Love. Rumi looks up at him and he says, "Oh, don't worry about this. This kind of stuff is for learned people." And Sham says, "Oh." Sets all his books alight, on fire, in flames. Rumi freaks out and says, "What are you doing? What is that? What did you do?" And Sham says, "Oh, don't mind. That's only for awakened people." So, something to that effect. To me, Shams is it. I love him. I hope someday to meet him in spirit somehow. I revere him.
Yeah. He is a sun. Shams means sun.
Rumi's sun. Yeah.
And the light of the sun is too bright for most of us to face, because it's going to reveal all the shadows, the pain, the fears,
Right.
everything that's ignorant within us, everything that we've tried so studiously to deny and avoid and suppress and repress. All of that comes up to the surface.
Good point.
And most people will freak out
Yeah.
when they face that. In fact, Kiara means ray of the sun,
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you.
which I didn't know when I got the name. I got the name from the whales in Hawaii.
Is it from a certain language?
It well, the name came as a kind of a vibration
Got it.
when I was with the whales in the ocean. And then there was a kahuna that I met who translated it, and he said, "This is what that means, ray of the sun." So
It wasn't
it's
Kahu Wendell Silva just by a shot in the dark, was it?
no,
Okay.
it was
I used to live in Hawaii, and I actually used to work on a whale watching boat for a while.
oh really?
So we have a little bit of
Oh,
connection there too.
yeah,
I've had
yeah.
a multi-dimensional life, but we won't get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll at some point. I'd like to know more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Afterwards, we'll
yeah.
yeah.
No, so in this case, it's like, Shams was like he was the fire of
Right.
this that is willing to burn and is willing to burn up. And from the ashes, purification. And, Rumi then said, or I'd call him Mevlana. I lived in Turkey for many years.
Oh, wow.
So he's known in Turkey as Mevlana, beloved teacher.
Mevlana, Molana, Jalaluddin, Muhammad.
Yeah.
He's got a chain of 6 or 7. Yeah.
Right, right. And Rumi actually means the one from Rome, because that used to be the Eastern Roman Empire.
Oh, I
So
didn't know
that's
that.
not even his name. His name is actually Jalaluddin. And then because, or Mevlana was the name that came when he became known as a teacher, as a mystic, as a what do they call it, a sheikh. So yeah, but that's what he's known then. He used to say that there's 3 phases, there's 3 awakenings. The first is when you're identified with a single drop of water and you're yearning for the ocean. You're yearning to be, dissolved. You're yearning to let go of your limited personal self. And the thirst becomes so great that eventually you don't have a choice. And for most people, either they haven't made that first step, they haven't stepped into that river, or they're on a path of seeking. And many spiritual seekers are constantly seeking. And that's their identity, a seeker. The next phase, is when you actually find the ocean, you dissolve into the ocean. And some people call that enlightenment. Okay, so you're releasing the personal self, you're dissolving the personal ego. That's only the second step. And then he said there's a third phase, which only very few find, or very few are willing to find. And this is when the ocean enters into you, when the ocean enters into the drop. And as soon as the ocean enters the drop, it transforms everything. You're no longer identified with your smallness, your dropness, your limitations, your personal identity. Then you become the ocean, you become everything. And isn't that what God is? Isn't that what divinity is? You, like the first question you're asking, I don't remember how you phrased it. I am God, but I am that.
We are the divinity from which we have arisen.
Yeah. And isn't that also what teachers like Jesus always were reminding people?
I
I and
think
the Father are one.
teacher,
Yeah.
coming from different sides of the mountain, from different trails at different paces and different starting points and all that, when you ascend higher and higher in realization, the mountain well, this is why I love pyramid, triangle, everything I have such an affinity for three and triangle and pyramid.
Mm.
You get to that point. Well, what happens at the point? You have singularity. You have the singularity.
Mm.
And oh, I can't remember the term right now, but even speaking of Jesus, they say, the stone that was rejected has become the cornerstone. There's actually a misunderstanding in that verse. They're not talking about the cornerstone. They're talking about oh, I can't remember the name of it. The very top point of the
Oh, okay.
pyramid, the pyramidal
The bridge
capstone. But there's
capstone.
another better name. The reference was that he is the completion
Mm.
of the
Mm.
singularity.
Yeah. So when they built the arches, it was the capstone that held everything together.
That was the keystone in that case. But for a pyramid,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I
Mm.
can't remember the name offhand, but let's just call it the pyramid peak
Mm.
stone. That it is a pyramid and it completes the pyramid. They were referring to him as that stone, not some block on a corner of a square thing. They weren't. But anyway, when you ascend
Mm.
higher and higher into realization, reawakening, returning, well, don't they all converge?
Exactly. And this is also the symbol of the crown chakra. So
Oh,
it's like, when you're connecting with that, so here, that's a pyramid,
mm-hmm,
and it represents the crown.
mm,
And then from there, divinity descends, moves through the different chakras as it enters into the third eye. Then it's like you're reflecting that divinity
mm,
uh, through your will, your intention,
mm.
your sense of purpose, your vision
Yeah,
for yourself. It continues down even further. Then you speak your vision, you create your manifested truth.
yeah,
You come down to the heart and you give feeling to it. You allow love to flow through, and that's divine, just as much as these others are. Then, when you come to your creative power, that capstone then descends through your third chakra and gives you the desire, the passion, and the ability to step down this powerful divine force into manifesting into third dimension. Then you come down even
right.
lower, you come down to the second chakra, that's the creative juices. Sexuality is just one aspect of it. It's also the ability to merge the polarities, the yin and the yang,
Mm-hmm.
to create a higher truth through the Tao. And then the first chakra, that's the key, because then you can embody that divinity within this physical body and upon the earth. That's your umbilical cord to the heart of the Earth Mother.
The
Um,
root chakra.
yeah. So that's, very few people are really embodied to that level where that umbilical cord has blossomed. That umbilical cord actually connects you with the heart of the earth as a living consciousness. It allows you to dissolve the personal identity so you can actually experience your planetary identity, and then from there, your cosmic identity. But that's embodied divinity. Many people talk about the path as leaving up and, transcending physical realities and then joining into
Right.
this ocean.
Yeah.
Whereas here, the ocean is entering into the drop,
Yeah.
it's settling into all the chakras down to the earth. You become the earth, you become divine consciousness manifested in nature. And so
Kiara,
you're sacralizing. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're actually sacralizing matter,
Synchronizing.
sacralizing, making it sacred,
Okay, like sanctifying it.
sanctifying. Yeah.
So what you said before about you said that there are the three phases, and the beginning is the yearning for the drop to merge back into the ocean. And then you said when you let go of the self, many people would feel, I did it. That's it. But then when you spoke of the third phase, which is, the road less traveled, um, the ocean comes into you. Something in me that was incredibly beautiful. When you what that imagery that I experienced when you said it that way, that direction of energy, that felt so beautiful to envision, that I knew it had to be good, right, and true. And of course, Rumi says, you think you're a drop in the ocean, but you are the whole ocean in a drop. But you went further, and the ocean comes into you. And another soul dream that I had when I was a little child, one of the handful, it might be 3 or 4 that I could remember. It was as if my body was asleep in bed, and I suddenly returned to whatever is the void. I don't know what to call it. Infinite black emptiness. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't lacking. I wasn't empty. I wasn't threatened. There was nothing. There was no fear. I was just back to where I came from before I was born here this time. And all of a sudden, I just began watching scenes in front of me. And I can remember a lovely rose garden in Italy. Meanwhile, I'm a single digit, maybe I'm 6, maybe 7. And I can see this lovely garden with a stone wall and a little fence on top of that, and there's roses and there's a tree, and I'm in some lovely garden in a very mild climate in Italy somewhere, southern Italy or something. And I don't know, that maybe I was just creating all that and thinking it, or I don't know, but there wasn't me involved.
Yeah.
There wasn't well, that's over there, and I'm looking at that, and I'm over here, and I'm different from that, and apart. There wasn't this separation of, well, that's that place, and I'm me here. There wasn't a me anymore. Imagine if there was a thin membrane, a bubble around us that made us believe in separation and duality and being apart from. That was gone. I was just fully open. I was the void. There actually wasn't a void and me. There was just
There's only that. Yes. Which
that's
is
it.
why in the Vedic tradition, there's no names. It's just that. I am that.
Yeah.
Because how can you define it? How can you give qualities to it?
Yes. I think of that every time I call my cat Lotus, because the Thai accent, they don't say lotus, they say lotat. And so I call her lotat, tat, 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 tat. And then I'm thinking, that's a good meditation there. Tat, tat, tat. Because we get the English word that from the Sanskrit tat, meaning what you just said.
Right.
And you are that suchness. You are that. You are that.
I am. Yeah.
But as I said before, Kiara, as you so eloquently said, we choose not to be this divinity we are. We choose to delay it, put it aside. Let me see what else I can be. Let me see what else there is to be aside from who I am in divinity. Let me create another imagined entanglement in my mind and my ego and all that. And I would have to also say, in fairness, that a tremendous amount of it is along those entangled journeys of our ego intellect and searching outside of ourselves and seeking other than, for lack of better words, we forget. We go so far down the wormhole, we forget. We don't even remember who we are anymore. Gods with amnesia.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the difference between what I would call incarnation and what I would call embodiment. Incarnation has to do with the human form. It has to do with the physical body. It has to do with the emotional and the mental body. Embodiment has to do with soul. And, I think what happens, for whatever reason, I don't understand, is that when we incarnate, we kind of forget.
Right.
There's literally this reality reducing valve in the nervous system of the brain, which can only process so much reality at any one time. And so everything else gets buried in the subconscious or the superconscious,
Yeah.
and we don't have conscious memory of that. So all we have is like, maybe 1,000 bits of information per second, where we are designed to process 1 billion. So truly enlightened, embodied soul doesn't need that reality reducing valve because they can access that frequency of the universe. They can actually come into resonance. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes a step-by-step building process where you're creating a link with the light body. So you're reaching beyond the emotional and mental bodies into higher mental and causal bodies. And then once that structure is built, your vibrational frequency is very different. And you're able to hold, to contain, to embody the fullness of divinity in the way that all the enlightened teachers have. And maybe, I don't even know if all the enlightened teachers have been able to do that, because that was not their intention for that particular period of time. The intention was the second stage, to dissolve into the ocean. But now this third stage of letting the ocean entering into you, that's, I think, something that's very unique. And it requires creating passageways, bridges, through all these different bodies that have been separated from each other for a very, very long time.
And
And
I would
so remembering is the key.
add to that, correct me if I'm off track here. There seems to be, in the allowing the ocean to enter you, I got a hit when you said that. You have to first let go of the need to control, or your illusion that you are controlling everything. That's key. I got that hit when you said it. The need to control is an obstacle that has to be out of the way to let the ocean in. Almost, this may or may not be a good metaphor. There's a certain kind of scuba diving apparatus where you actually
Based on the
breathe
idea that
water.
you don't already have everything that you need and want. So it's like controlling, it's like trying to control the river rather than just surrendering and flowing with it.
Right. I had a little internet glitch there, and if I cut you off, I'm sorry. I didn't hear for a moment with the internet. I apologize if that happened. I just think that our need to control can get in the way.
Yeah.
Kiara, how would you suggest someone release that as an obstacle?
What helps me whenever I go into the need to control, I recognize that it comes from my own fear, or my own security, my own lack of trust. Because if I cannot trust the divine flow, which is the bigger picture, then I'm going to create my limited flow based on a limited understanding of reality, based on one moment in time and space. So I've already shrunk myself into this tiny little creaturehood before I can ever feel the need to control anything. If I'm not identified with this tiny little creatureness, I don't need to control anything. I'm being the ocean. I'm entering into this divine flow, spanda, the absolute perfection of all things, is available right now. And we talked earlier about these three aspects: the Icha Shakti, the Jnana Shakti, and the Kriya Shakti: will, awareness, and action. They're one and the same. So whatever I am able to perceive from the level of the divine self comes into manifestation on the physical level. So the need to control is only when I don't think that I'm able to manifest something that I desire. When I let go of that, then something bigger than my own personal self takes over. And I discover that everything I've ever wanted is available. And more than that, because my personal will has merged with divine will.
Your personal will has left, and the divine will is now your personal will. In that sense,
That's
it's not
it.
that there's even
That's
two
it.
agreeing. It's that this one is gone. That one, I'll take that. You drive. I'll flow.
Yeah.
I
It's a new
I love that.
identity.
I love, Kiara, how you pointed out that as soon as we went from the need to control, you went to fear, and then you peeled fear open and you revealed mistrust or distrust. I don't know if the video I did has posted yet or not, because they're scheduled weeks ahead. But in one video that I did recently, I addressed that. I said, think, be clear about something. When we fear and we need to control everything, it's because we are afraid. And because we are afraid is because we mistrust or distrust divinity and ourselves. And who are we to distrust that? As soon as you come to the realization, oh my gosh, what is beneath this behavior or this trait, this tendency in me? A distrust of divinity and self. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't keep doing that anymore. Now that that's come up as like a bubble in a jar of honey. Now that that's come up, I can't do that anymore.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
not upset about that. I'm just saying that can't happen anymore.
Right.
Pop, that's it.
And the greatest masters, I'm not just talking about spiritual teachers, I'm also talking about those who've built empires or those who've created change in the world.
Yeah.
They've mastered the fear. They've recognized that they are not the doers, that something beyond is moving through them.
Yeah.
Even someone like Genghis Khan,
Yeah.
okay, so we might consider him a tyrant or, whatever we call him. But he came with a particular mission, which was to unify the tribes of those times, to create this huge empire. Same thing with Attila, with Alexander, with whoever else. There was a transition going on in human history where we're moving away from tribalism to empire in order to understand, in order to create certain things which were not possible in a tribalized culture. Now we're moving beyond empire. So now
I'm
what
not
it
sure that he
takes,
was conscious and deliberate,
no,
consciously and
no,
deliberate.
it wasn't. It
I think he
wasn't.
served that end, but he
Yeah,
also referred to himself as the punishment of God.
right, right.
I am the,
Yeah, so
yeah,
so I don't think, no, absolutely not. It wasn't conscious. It wasn't,
yeah, might,
I mean, it was based on, his own self-aggrandizement, his own tyranny. And yes, but what I'm saying is that despite that, there's a divinity was working in
yeah,
order to evolve something new.
yeah.
And that's what's happening today as well.
In
So
in
right
the
now we're in
sense
the
that
midst of,
he, in the sense that he was an agent of the change that was occurring.
right. He was a
Life
tool.
was living out through him, and as life is living out through us.
Yeah. So he thought he was the master of his destiny and of the world's destiny, but he was an agent. He was a tool for this greater divinity, this greater destiny that was winding its way through him, exactly in the same way that is happening today. So
Yeah,
now we have these empires battling each other. We have the deep state. We have this elite. The connected with Davos, Illuminati, Cabal, whatever names and now there's so many names for this, and
yeah,
people are understanding what this is about. But
yeah,
it's something based on the need to conquer, to oppress, to suppress freedom, to impose certain
yeah.
agendas.
Yep.
That's so beyond that, there's another phase coming. So now the reason all this is coming to the fore in the world, what's happening in Ukraine right now, what's happening in Taiwan, what's happening in Kosovo, it's, Iran, there's all kinds of global conflicts, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, it's like everything, the old um, order is collapsing.
Yep.
And in the words used by Putin, the fair world order is emerging. Or maybe Lavrov said that.
I
But the
think
fair world order,
you could say that about almost every institution,
yeah,
religion,
yeah,
government,
yeah,
anything that people felt anything they derived safety and authority and guidance from, especially in the, like my parents' generation, the way that people in that generation viewed authority figures, policemen, priests, traffic cops, judges, whoever, and doctors, completely different from how those figures are viewed today, because there is a collapsing, a corruption and a collapsing of all of it, as you
And
say. And go ahead.
one thing about this is that external authorities are necessary until we are comfortable with our internal authority. That's sovereignty.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
as soon as we become comfortable, and as soon as we become desirous of living that sovereignty in the world, in ways that matter, in ways that serve, in ways that interact harmoniously,
Yep.
then it's like the new paradigm emerges this time. Until
And
then,
you're alluding back to the Tao in that
yeah,
a society that is living in harmony with the Tao governs itself, doesn't even know, the half of the Tao Te Ching is basically advice to rulers, and it talks about how to, the wise and effective ruler is almost forgotten by
yeah,
his people. He's just a notion out on the edge. He's
yeah.
not iron fist pushing, crushing. Nope,
Mm.
quite the
No,
opposite.
no. In fact, we're coming, we're at that stage now where the iron fist um, creates so much reaction that people are waking up.
Yeah,
So the iron fist is no longer effective.
yeah. We might say a boot to the neck might be a little bit more appropriate, even.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm glad to see it go. I don't think it's going to be a 1-2 switch, though. I mean, there is
Mm,
this period of chaos and confusion that will be between, that we have to go through.
mm.
Um, but after all, did we not choose to be here now?
Yeah, and we choose to be the Windriders.
Yes,
Yeah,
and ride
going
the
back,
wind we will.
going back full circle, to that vision quest. This being that was communicating these timelines, these possibilities for the future, identified himself eventually as Windrider. And then he said, I'm an aspect of you from the future. I'm here to help you remember, help embody who you are. And so, shortly after that, I'd written my first book. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to claim that name. Maybe it's time to start growing into that. Maybe start recognizing what it means to ride the winds, to surrender to this wind of change, to stop struggling against change, against the river.
Exactly. Instead of flailing against the wave, stand
Yeah,
up and surf.
yeah, yeah. There we go. There we go.
In conclusion, Kiara, for in a very practical manner, could you package a few bullet points of your guidance and your suggestions for the person who is looking at this stage in their life to enter into the embodying the fullness of the divinity they are? Map that out a little bit for somebody as far as a process, what you would suggest.
I think I would say that Your greatest need is the opportunity for your greatest liberation. Whether we're talking about collectively or personally, some people talk about the dark night of the soul, where everything you've believed, everything you've thought was real is no longer true. You find yourself in this place where you feel discouraged, hopeless, fearful, and you see the world around you and it starts becoming a prison. You wonder what you're doing on this planet, whether you came to the wrong place.
Yeah.
You wonder what your purpose is. You wonder if you have any friends left. Um, that's the point where you start to build something new, which is impenetrable, in the sense that that fear cannot penetrate that. And then it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Sure.
But it's like building that structure of fearlessness by surrendering to divinity, by trusting that there's something bigger than yourself that you can surrender to. And when I say surrender, I'm not talking about resigning. That's more of a passive thing. But an active surrender is like, I am one with everything there is.
Yeah.
I am not separate from the events around me, and therefore I cannot be controlled. I cannot be in fear. I don't need to resist because there's a strength coming through that's more powerful than any tyrant out there. I'm not a victim. And when I claim that, it's really the claim of a warrior. Um, when the warrior says, I will not be intimidated by anything outside of me or inside of me that seeks to divide, I will find my own path of freedom, no matter what others have said, no matter what I've believed myself in the past, by surrendering to this greater force. And that means taking time from out of your life, maybe spending a few minutes a day in this space of stillness, silence, meditation, whatever we call it. Maybe I think one other important thing is the sangha, the ability to relate with other like-minded people, like-hearted people.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do this on your own. It's impossible to do it by yourself, unless you're an exceptional individual. But even so, I think we came here as family, as soul family. We came here to accomplish something. We came here to be warriors in this realm of duality. And we're seeing, it's like I go back to Lord of the Rings, these tiny little hobbits, who are they probably the most what's the word that Gandalf used? Well, like, inconsequential of folks. They were the ones who managed to overthrow Sauron.
Yeah. And what's
So
the
here we are.
parable? There's a parable where I'm sorry, I don't know enough about it to make it good, but the hero character who overcomes himself and transcends all is a lowly snail. And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
point. Humble
yeah,
and well, that that's the same kind of people that the Christ sought out.
right,
The
right.
outcast, the unwanted, the disrespected, the lowly. That's the
Yeah,
people he sought out to go and bring his light to.
exactly. And I think that's what we all need to recognize, that, much as the world has tried to imprison us into
Yeah.
a box of ideas, and then, other boxes too, physical boxes. But most essentially, the box of ideas, where we then turn on ourselves and claim to be inconsequential, claim to be limited, claim to be um, sinners, distorted,
We lessen ourselves.
invisible. We lessen ourselves. And here we are now learning to recognize who we truly are. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll not even be a few years. I think this is a journey of our lifetime. And it's a
or
journey
more.
or more. It's a collective destiny. But I do see that humanity, we're moving from the phase of being children or maybe adolescents into an age of adulthood. Um, and that's
That's a
the age
good
of
point.
divinity.
That's a very good perception, as far as almost the timeline of the species, so to speak.
Yeah.
We are on the cusp of entering, maybe we were somewhere around puberty or teenage, and it's time to grow up into our
Exactly.
true. Kiara, may I share with you a quote by Marianne Williamson that seems to fit very well here?
Oh, yes, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
please do.
for the viewers, I'd like to share this
Yeah.
point because it just fits exactly what Kiara is sharing with us now. This quote by Marianne Williamson says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be?
Not to be.
You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking like your creaturehood. I loved that word. So that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others."
Aho. Aho. Yes.
I
That's
just,
what embodiment is about.
there it is. And if that's, by the way, the only thing she ever gave the world, her incarnation is complete.
Mm,
I
yes.
love that quote. And
Mm,
what you are saying is in complete harmony with it, and it's time for us to grow up. You're right, Kiara. And I'll add, it's time for us to start being what we are and resolving that
yeah.
conflict that I alluded to before about we are this, but we're not being it. It's time
To be
to
it.
align, attune, center, connect,
Mm,
and return to the true nature that we are.
aho.
Know ye not that ye are gods?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Kiara Windrider, you have just made my night, and you've blessed me and our viewers so much with your presence and everything that you've shared with us here tonight, all the way from India. And I just can't thank you enough, but let that convey how much I appreciate
Mm.
your presence and your sharing here tonight with us, Kiara. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. And I
I
expect
hope
to
to see you
continue.
again. I hope to
Yes.
see you again.
Yes.
Thank you, brother.
Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.